Ryan Nembhard had a very productive college career, first at Creighton and then at Gonzaga. Now enters the NBA draft. Not expected to be drafted, but now he's bumped himself into where he could potentially get picked the end of the second round after some really good performances at the combine. Performed much better than a lot of people anticipated that he would. Showed some promising things to go with an entire college career of production. Let's talk about strengths and weaknesses first. Like what should we know about his game that he does well and that made him such a productive player at the college level?
IQ. I think the two teams he played for kind of lends to that. Like there isn't. I really don't want this to sound rude, so if I need help explaining it, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay.
There's a lot less self-creation on Gonzaga and Creighton than on like like most teams, specifically the NBA level, but even like the high level college game. But the sets they run are phenomenal. And I think the way he orchestrates an offense is very high level IQ.
He is a true traditional point guard where he runs the show, pass first, set the table for everybody else, can contribute when you need him to. And part of Gonzaga's issue last year was they needed him to more than they probably should have. He could contribute it, but it took him out of his natural game. That's how I would think of him. Traditional, true point guard, table setter, really good passer, really good playmaker. What about his weaknesses, though? Like, why is he not projected to be drafted or potentially going at the back end of the second round?
Because he doesn't have what his brother has, and that's uh,
Size.
rhythm to his offensive game.
He's it's tough when you are an inconsistent scorer with his size because
Yes.
there's a ceiling on what you can be defensively, and if you can't consistently create your own shot, you're very dependent on others.
In my opinion, like his brother is obviously bigger than him, like substantially. But his brother also like has a lot, in my opinion, has a lot more like swag to his offensive game. Where it just flows. He gets to his spots, not necessarily whenever he wants, but enough.
Mhm.
Sometimes, he struggled in the Knicks series. That's Aaron Nembhard, this is, but like he was getting looks, and I feel like Ryan Nembhard struggles to get looks. He doesn't have a lot of self-creation swag. I know he can create for himself, but there is zero fear if he has the ball and he's about to ISO somebody.
Right. Like Andrew Nemhard is 6'4".
Andrew, I'm
Ryan is listed at 6 feet.
yeah.
Like that's a big difference. And Ryan showed what he could do, or excuse me, Andrew showed what he can do defensively throughout these playoffs. And he was somebody too whose game in the pre-draft process was not looked favorably upon, and he outperformed his draft position. I think there's a chance Ryan can do that as well, but he has got more of an uphill battle, I think, just because he doesn't have that prototypical NBA size.
What was his combine height?
Ryan without
It
shoes,
was 5'11" barefoot.
yeah.
He has a 6'2" wingspan.
Well, if you saw 11 barefoot, we're putting Ace Bailey math on this. He's at least 6'2" in shoes.
Let's not get started on that facade that Ace Bailey ran on college basketball for a year.
Let's keep this Ryan Nembhard related. We're gonna get into our. We have 7 different categories. We're gonna go through for Ryan Nembhard as we have for all of our top 80 prospects here on the Supers Media YouTube channel. I'm gonna start with one word to describe him. Dion, you'll give your word. I will give mine, and then we'll discuss. So, what was your word for Ryan Nembhard?
First off, I'm sorry for cutting you off there. That's apologies. Hand up. Accountability. My one word was sibling because he is one.
My one word is underrated.
Yeah.
I think he is perhaps the most slept on player in this draft.
Where'd you have him ranked? Hold on.
I'm glad. So I was the high man, or I guess the high man on him. I had him 50 on my big board. Greg had him 51. You had him 72. Riley had him 76, and Cart had him 79 because Cart's a hater.
Yeah. No, I stand on my ranking. I'm honestly not huge on the Nemhard family, but Andrew is hooping, so it's
I
it's
think
tough not to acknowledge that.
I think we've said this. I've said this on a podcast or a recap or a show or something. I'm a sucker for Nemhards. I loved Andrew going back to when he was at Florida. Like I love Ryan. I love Ryan's game. I think he showed a lot more shooting prowess this season and at the combine than I think people had expected from him. So you couple that with the fact he's probably the best pure passer in this draft. I think there could be a role for him in the NBA. It's why I think he's more likely to hit his ceiling in the NBA. But what about, do you think he's more likely ceiling or floor?
I said floor. So the reason I said floor, and part of the reason I was out on Andrew Nembhard too coming into the draft, and I will openly admit I was wrong on that clearly. That style of play, that true point guard play, I think that's dead in the NBA. And I think Andrew Nembhard had to learn how to play differently. Like he's playing off ball. I mean, that
Yeah.
never happened at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
And I don't think, unfortunately, like, some of this just comes down to genetics. Like everyone is so similar, right? Like the difference between Ryan Nembhard and Dylan Harper is very minimal. But one of the biggest differences is size, right? And that's why Dylan Harper is going to be a multi-time All-Star, and I ultimately think Ryan Nembhard plays himself out the league.
Everybody's out of the league at some point, Dion.
Yeah, well,
It may just be in 15 years in Ryan Nembhard's case. It may just
his will be a lot sooner than others, I think.
Well, if he is going to stick and if he is going to have a best chance at a long career, where would that fit be? What would be the best team for him to go to on draft night or signing with as an undrafted guy?
Pacers. So I think this is what it's in line with my one word to describe him sibling.
Yeah.
I think Andrew's good enough to tell the Pacers he's coming with me.
Okay. Feeling like the TJ McConnell role, basically.
Yeah, or the is it Evan Mobley's brother still kicking?
I mean, he's still alive.
But like I mean like in the league, like isn't he on the Cavs like in a two-way like or like the G League or
Yeah,
something like that?
Andrew Nembhard and Evan Mobley are two different calibers player. Isaiah Mobley is still in the league, but he's on the 76ers.
There you go. See, the Sixers probably want Evan.
Or the Sixers need warm bodies who are healthy and don't break down every 2 games.
But like you get like if you're in the league because of your brother, other teams just sign you because they know you're in America. Like if you're Ryan Nembhard, some of these guys once they go to play overseas, you can't play in the league anymore because you're stuck. You're contractually obligated to stay over there. So I think Andrew Nembhard keeps him around long enough to where he gets those supplementary opportunities that like an Isaiah Mobley got.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I put the Suns.
The Tyus
I
Jones route.
looking for a team that has no money, has no guards, and needs depth. Right? There's also the fact that you go on that team, you don't need somebody else who's going to try and take shots. If as currently constructed, you have Devin Booker, you have Kevin Durant, you have Bradley Beal. We'll see if that's actually how all 3 of them are on the team to start next season. But you don't need another guy who needs shots, right? Ryan doesn't need shots. Ryan would be more than happy to pass the ball to those guys and set them up.
Can I provide a little pushback? And the comment section is going to hate me for providing pushback to you, by the way.
That's
And
fine.
I'm okay with that. That went terribly with Tyus Jones.
It did. It did, but it also went terribly without Tyus Jones. I don't
That's
think that was a Tyus Jones problem. I think that's a Phoenix Suns problem.
that's fair. That's fair. But Tyus Jones is everything you just described.
He is. He is. But where did the Suns finish this year in the playoffs?
I don't think they made it.
They
I don't
didn't
think
make it.
they made a plan.
They didn't make it. Yeah, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Well,
not a Tyus Jones issue.
I think walking the ball up the court and just passing to somebody is one of the more useless traits on a basketball court.
Well, if they had a coach who, would run a play, that helps a little bit. All right, in 5 years, where do you see Ryan Nembhard? We had different options we could pick from, anywhere from All NBA to playing overseas or hosting a podcast, and everywhere in between. Where did you see Ryan Nembhard in 5 years?
I think overseas and G League is very interchangeable depending on like what your like priorities and values are. For him, I said G League. I think his brother keeps him kicking in NBA circles a lot longer than most would get to. I'm really hyping up Andrew Nembhard on
You
this
are,
guy.
man.
He no pressure, Andrew. But in my world, your brother needs you really bad right now. No pressure. But I also, by the way, could see him and Andrew just having a podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
I would probably listen to that
Oh
actually.
yeah. It could probably go off of the same vibes as like the Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart
Yeah.
podcast.
Or like the Ball Family podcast with Lonzo and Jello and like the two other dudes I've never heard of.
That would work. I think he's a bench guy. I think he develops into like a prototypical backup point guard, very much following the Tyus and Trey Jones route.
I can see that. I can see that. I think honestly, I think he could have a podcast while doing everything we just described too.
A lot of NBA guys do. A lot of NBA guys do. Is We'll get to his yearbook superlative now. Again, we're handing out one of these for everybody in our top 80. Nembhard was number 70
Yeah.
consensus. I had him 50, and everybody else had him in the 70s. Ryan Nembhard is most likely to what in this draft class?
Walk the ball up the court.
I said be a beloved teammate.
Did the Gonzaga team love him? Are we sure?
Yeah, they needed him.
So, I mean, a lot of people are needed in college, though. But did they love him? Like, was he invited out? Like, would they go out on a Friday night? Like, is he getting separate texts? Is he in the group chat? Where does he rank in terms of like going out on a
I think
Friday?
he was the one who was like created the group chat.
Okay, then he's a beloved teammate. Then I'm
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. That's the vibes I'm getting. I'm getting from Ryan Nembhard. We're doing player comps a little bit differently on these videos if you have not seen one before. Instead of giving just what we think his career is going to be and like a comp, we're going best case, worst case. So everything breaks the right way. What does that look like? Everything breaks the wrong way. What does that look like? We'll start with best case. Dion, who's your best case comp?
Andrew Nembhard.
For somebody who is so down on Ryan Emhard, you're comping him a lot to Andrew, who you seem to love.
I love Andrew now. I think he's developed a ton since he got into the league. And I think, I mentioned this on a couple videos that Riley and I did as well. Like, you normally don't get that much time to develop once you're in the NBA, especially when you're as old as like a Ryan Nembhard is coming out. They
Mhm.
give up on you very quickly. The reason I'm giving Andrew Nembhard a lot of love is like, let's take a Mark Sears, for example. Because his brother isn't in the NBA, they will give it up on him very quickly. I think Andrew Nembhard's going to buy Ryan a lot of time to develop that most dudes want to get.
I think you're sleeping on Andrew. Andrew started 63 games as a rookie, and he did have to. I mean, he's developed a lot, and he's had to do some of that. But I think the thing he had along with the size was he played at Gonzaga next to Jalen Suggs and next to Joel Ayayi and next to some other guys who needed the ball.
Yeah,
Right. So he was okay for him to slide off. Ryan didn't have to do that, largely because Gonzaga had nobody else that they would take from him, who would take the ball from him, no one else who he needed to share with. I have his best case as Ricky Rubio.
it's a really good player.
He's a really good player.
Much better player than Andrew.
I don't know if Ricky Rubio really is. I think the idea of Ricky Rubio was always better than actual Ricky Rubio, but somebody who spent a decade plus in the league, pass first guy, shot never really came around, offense really never really came around, but did enough with his playmaking and just his basketball IQ to be a quality player for a long time. I think that's the kind of mold that, again, if everything breaks right, Ryan Nembhard is on that path.
I can see that. Rubio, pre-injury, Ricky Rubio was ridiculous there for a second.
There were some glimmers. There
Yeah,
were some glimmers. What about
there's
worst? What about worst case?
It was in the light of your son's comment, but I think Tyus is way too good. So I said Trey. I just went with the other brother.
Trey? Trey
Trey
Jones
Jones.
pretty good.
Yeah, so I did Google Trey Jones as you were talking. He's carved out a much better career than I thought he did when I made the worst case comp. Had no
Yep.
idea. He had no idea he was on the Bulls. So good for Trey. Had a pretty good season this year too. But I mean, nonetheless, like I think Trey got a lot of chances because of his brother being very good. Like the Spurs have been trying to get Tyus since they drafted Trey, and I
Yes.
think, and it's not like Tyus Jones is like an all-star by any means, but I think Tyus Jones bought Trey Jones a lot of time. I think Andrew's going to buy Ryan Nembhard a lot of time that most people won't get to.
I went with the first small guard who was out of the league pretty quickly because he was small that I could think of. Sharif Cooper.
I was so out on Sharif Cooper. It was insane.
The
I
game
could be.
games are very different, but it could very much be like you're too small for this and out.
I'll say this I'm not going to defend Ryan Nembhard too much, obviously. He at least is willing to pass the ball and get in a
Yeah.
stay.
The reason why that's the worst case comp for me is because I don't doubt Ryan Nemhard's skill level and basketball IQ. Like if it doesn't work in the league, it's going to be because the size just won't make it work. And Sharif, there were a lot of things, but the main thing with Sharif was just the size was not going to make it work.
I will say I do believe that's fair. I believe that's fair. I think his now unfortunately like I think that's just the difference in players sometimes. Like I think the margin for error in the NBA is so small.
Yeah, it
So
really
small.
is. It really is. But interesting to see where he ends up, whether that's on draft night or as an unrestricted free agent, an undrafted free agent. He would be unrestricted, an undrafted free agent. We have differing opinions, but if his worst case is Trey Jones, I think he'd take that career.
I do want to preface I didn't know Trey Jones has had the career he's had when I made that.